Okay, perfect. And I think we are live here, so I want to welcome our audience and welcome Psygen, Danny Motyka, Peter Vanderheyden, and Ryan Zur is going to be moderating this panel. Without further ado, gentlemen, I'm going to pass it off to you. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks, Patrick. And thanks to everyone at Microdose for putting this on. This is great, and this work is so important to building awareness and maturity in this emerging industry. This is really special opportunity for me and super exciting because I get to chat with two entrepreneurs that are as mature and complete as you'll find in the space. And the business they're building, I'm as excited about as anything that's happening in the entire industry. So Danny and Peter, why don't we kind of start at the beginning and you guys walk me through a little bit of the genesis story and how Psygen came together and how you sort of decided on this niche and solving this problem specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter, I'll just jump in and I'll let you fill in the gaps. For me, I've been passionate about psychedelic medicine for the last 15, almost 20 years, and studied chemistry with the intention of becoming a manufacturer one day. Kind of cut my teeth in the cannabis industry, but was getting a little bit disenchanted back in 2018. So I started, I went to a conference in Stockholm, Sweden, where researchers were all saying the same thing. They needed improved access to GMP psychedelic drug products so that they could complete their clinical research studies. And I started building a business plan to develop a psychedelic manufacturing company, reached out to Rick Doblin from MAPS, who put me in touch with Peter Vanderheyden, who is building the exact same company on the West Coast. And after Peter and I connected together, our values fit perfectly, and we decided it would be better to collaborate than to compete with one another.
Well, very few gaps in there. This came together for me really with a simple question. Where are all these companies that are doing drug development, clinical research, where are they going to get their GMP drug substances and drug products? And when I started looking into that a little closer, it turned out that, well, there are a few companies that are doing this. They're CMOs. Big Pharma is, probably watching from the sidelines, but not jumping in. And the question always came up, why is nobody really dedicating themselves specifically to manufacturing psychedelics? The companies that were out there and that still are out there are tied up in exclusivity agreements. And so I went, well, I can do this. We can make these things. We've done it before, except in this case in a very different context. So that's what we're doing here. We want to provide supply chain solutions and do it completely on a non-exclusive basis.
Mm-hmm. What led to the idea to do it only on a non-exclusive basis rather than tying up with say one big partner? And what were some of the early challenges that you guys faced and how did you overcome them to get to the point that you're at today?
So I'll let Peter talk about the exclusivity, but I think one of the early challenges that we had was, given that these are controlled substances, how do we jump in and start developing all of our IP and all of our synthetic protocols? And so Peter had established a relationship with a company at the University of Alberta that allowed us to get access to a licensed dealer, start developing our synthetic protocols, and produce almost 0.5 kilo of psilocybin that's allowed us to generate revenue in 2020 and 2021 and establish ourselves with over 15 different clients.
Yeah, the exclusivity piece is, this field is, of course, very young. There's still a lot of evidence that needs to be gathered in terms of both safety and efficacy. And so there are a lot of companies that are wanting to do this work. So we want to enable all of these companies to do that research. The more research is being done, the faster we'll get to a point where it's accepted that these substances are safe, that they have great potential. So we really don't want to limit either ourselves or anyone else to access these substances. And so we don't want to get tied up in exclusivity agreements and thereby, block other people from being able to access these medicines for research and ultimately, of course, for the patients, the people that really need it.
Awesome. So, as a venture capitalist, we spend a lot of our time thinking about the future and how the future will unfold. And you kind of have the luxury of being open-minded to different possibilities of how the future may unfold. And it's been a lot of fun to reason about how things will unfold in this novel industry and the roadmap ahead. But when you guys sort of sit around the table today and think about how the future of this space will unfold, both in terms of access and sort of curing the sick versus betterment of the well, in terms of geographies, so will it be Canada? Will it be the US? Will it be states? Will it be certain countries that you're excited about? IP controlled versus generics, or synthetics versus naturals. How do you see the future of this emergent field unfolding? And to your point, Peter, access for patients to be available. What does the future look like in a few years with psychedelic therapies?
Benny?
Well, so my belief is that the access to psychedelic medicines will likely pass through medical access and into what I hope is going to be more of a wellness market. I believe that psychedelic medicine is the bigger opportunity in psychedelic medicine is as a preventative medicine instead of just something that is for curing, various indications, although it is proven to be extremely efficacious. Certainly, with my own history of use, I wouldn't want to require some kind of a label, either being depressed or suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, in order to access these medicines, because they provide such deep insights. They provide creativity, energy, improved attention, and I think that all of those things are valid reasons. I think that Canada is demonstrating that we're a leader in drug policy reform. TheraPsil has been doing such amazing advocacy work for patients to get access. And now Health Canada is also reevaluating an approach to the special access program to allow drugs, all psychedelics that are listed in Part J, to be eligible for accessibility. So I think that other places around the world will kind of look towards Canada, but certainly with respect to our customer base, about 1/3 of our customers are doing clinical research in other jurisdictions other than Canada. So I think that medical research is happening worldwide. Hopefully Canada is going to be a world leader in drug policy reform and accessibility, but there's certainly still a lot of stigma to overcome in order to see psychedelics in the hands of everyday people.
Yeah, and I think that stigma will gradually, as the evidence comes in, which of course we hope it will in short order, that people will start recognizing that if used under the right circumstances, set and setting, and these things that we've known about for a long time, that stigma will drop, and that it'll become recognized that it can make well people weller. It's in some ways, it's especially the people that are well that can help move this forward. The world's in bad shape, and it's the well people that have an opportunity and are often in positions where we can make change. And so we're hoping that eventually, of course, these things will be available for adult use. There's a number of models available for that. Our clinical research director, Mark Hayden, has written an excellent piece on how that could be implemented. the kind of regulations that could be put in place in order to allow anyone access, almost in the same sense that it happened in ancient Greece and the Eleusinian mysteries. Wouldn't it be nice if we could have something like that in our modern world?
How do you guys look at the sort of the IP race that's going on upstream among drug developers versus generics, and how that applies to your business? Like, are you agnostic to how the future will unfold with respect to IP control around, psilocybin, MDMA, and LSD? What's your opinion there?
Ryan, just curious if you can hear me clearly, because I've got the two little red bars on my speaker panel.
Yeah, so we can hear you.
Okay.
Your video seems to be cut, but we can hear you.
Okay. So my perspective on IP is that there is definitely a land race, and IP is important. So Psygen's IP strategy is to continue to develop our procedures in the laboratory and look for opportunities that we can patent meaningful innovations. We're not planning to use those innovations to block other players from existing in this space. And I'm not really sure that use patents are going to hold water in the end. It'll be really interesting to see if there's going to be a precedent set. For example, with the Comp360 product, I am a little bit less confident that the Comp360 product to use psilocybin for a particular indication will hold water if it's challenged in court.
Yeah.
And then with respect to novel compounds versus generics, I think there's so much evidence that psilocybin, MDMA, and LSD are efficacious that this quest to find new psychedelics, while interesting, is, those drugs would take hundreds of millions of dollars to innovate and research and bring to market, when there's already a handful of compounds that have known safety profiles and can produce immediate value for humanity. So my long-term bet is on generics over new chemicals, but I do believe that there's still important value to continue researching.
Peter, as a chemist, do you have a divergent point of view or something to add there?
Well, of course, developing new chemical entities is a very pricey endeavor, and so that has to be paid for somehow. Being in this field and now in a GMP context, I've got a much greater appreciation for, that the story that we often throw out at big pharma bad. Well, it's very expensive. Of course, there's a big profit motive in there, and I understand that. I'm coming more from the idea that, these are medicines that should be available to everyone. And if psychedelics can somehow or other enter this field and bring in, along with that, a little bit of this philosophy that these things should be for everyone, in the same way that physicians take an oath to help anyone, regardless of whether they can pay for it or not. These things should be available for everyone. And so, to help that out a bit at Psygen, we've got a corporate philosophy that a portion of our net profits is going to be dedicated to helping people that can't afford access to sponsor and support them, and a couple of other things we want to do with our philanthropic plans. Great.
So tell us more about what 2021 is going to bring for Psygen. So, the new manufacturing facility is kind of well in course and scheduled to finish, relatively soon. But tell us what else you're excited to release to the world this year.